Hey HCDA, and today it's finally happening. The combat update for Dyson Sphere Program is out. So since time zones are really complicated by the time you're watching this, either the update is already out or it's about to release. Either way, you are probably about to start a new game in order to do battle with some robots. So I figured out it might be useful to share my preparation with all of you guys in case you find that useful. That preparation consists out of a blueprint collection you can find on DysonSphereBlueprints.com, and it consists out of a series of 61 blueprints that cover pretty much everything in the current version of the game, all the way from the early game builds all the way down to white science and rockets. I've listed them in such a way that if you order them accordingly, you can just pretty much build them one by one and you get everything you need in the order in which you need them. The builds included are very similar to my easy mode playthrough that I recently did, but I decided to adjust many of those builds, or pretty much all of them from the mid-game onwards, to allow for Mark II Proliferation. Now I went for Mark II mainly because it gives you most of the benefits of Proliferation. It's all the way up to 20% extra products at a very low cost, because all you need in order to produce this is just coal. Now, Mark III Proliferation would actually get you 25% extra products, but it also is a lot more complicated to make, especially once you just unlocked it. But of course, if you want to use Mark III Proliferation, by all means, all you need to do is just expand this build or add a new build to make the Mark III Proliferators, and make sure that the builds that are using it, which is pretty much all of them, are requesting the Mark III instead of the Mark II Proliferators. But if you use them out of the box, this is what they do. And you can see I'm pretty much proliferating all the inputs and outputs. I've set it up in such a way that wherever you have the same items being used within the same build, I kind of get them out of the build temporarily, make sure they are once again proliferated, and then loop them back in to once again be processed. So everything in this build should be proliferated. Hopefully I didn't miss anything, but if I did, let me know. And that means you should be able to get yourself a very efficient factory really early on. The designs also include my Polar Mall that not only includes every single building that's already in the game, but it also has plenty of empty space for buildings that you might want to add because of the combat update. Things like laser guns, rocket launchers, and so on. So I'm not sure if everything will fit into this build. I'm not entirely sure how many new buildings we're getting, but you should get a very long way with the builds that I have prepared for you in case you want to use them. Unfortunately, the sneak preview event that I was invited into for early access to the combat update never happened, so I'll be right there with you guys to experience everything when the thing comes out firsthand. Which means I will also be upgrading these blueprints as I get a chance to play the update myself. Okay, so let's talk a little bit on how to use these blueprints, and even if you don't plan on using them, you might get some inspiration out of it for your own game. As always, the first thing I recommend that you do is just set up a very simple basic facility that produces a little bit of everything, puts it into a box so you can easily grab those things to make the buildings you need, as well as do the research that you need to unlock the early things. Once you've done that, make sure you start unlocking the blueprints so you can actually use blueprints, because all of these things you will have to build by hand. So the first few blueprints are really simple. The first one is actually just a little simple setup for blue science to get a couple of science per second going. And of course a little facility that you should build yourself somewhere a little bit out of the way that allows for space to get in the next two types of sciences as well. Just keep that in mind once you build this, and just to get your science automated and going. Notice that I didn't really build any type of mall just yet. Because we have all the resources available here, it's actually really easy just to handcraft all the materials that you need. Just make sure you keep crafting things like belts and power units and things like that. And it's really not that inconvenient. You're not building large-scale factories at this point, so you don't really need that mall early on. And then, unsurprisingly, the next thing you want to do is to get the red science going, because that's the bottleneck in the early game. And all you need for that is a little build for the refinery. That always takes me a lot of time if I build that by hand, so blueprint speeds things up by a lot. You also need a little bit of graphite production, and then you have everything you need in order to get the red science going. You need to bring that to your same facility that collects your blue science. Of course, I added in a couple more of these science facilities in order to speed things up a little bit, and I do recommend building this facility twice. It's just exactly the exact same build, just in two different locations, just to make sure you get a decent amount of red science going. Otherwise you'll be waiting for this forever. Once you have that up and running, I recommend kind of preparing your chemical facility so you have something to do with all that oil you're producing And you're starting to collect things like acid and graphite, and on the other side of the map here, I have the organic resources and a production that is ready to start producing diamonds. This is pretty much all you need in order to get your yellow science going already, with the exception of titanium, which isn't on your starting planet. And as you can see, I'm about 1.5 hours into the game. I wasn't even trying to be fast here, but I think this is pretty much not as fast as it gets, but we are actually doing some prep work to make sure the mid-game goes faster, because we have a lot of things prepared already. But still, it's a pretty decent, fast way to progress. Not entirely sure how this is going to go when there is robots involved, but at least you can deal with that on your own time while the production takes care of itself. Speaking of yellow science, there is a little blueprint for that as well. It's very simple. It just makes the titanium crystals, and you can use the diamonds from the other build that I just showed you. And you could argue that you could also place this on a different planet where you actually have the titanium, or you can just build it on your starting planet. I tried both ways. I actually prefer building this on your home planet initially, because that means only titanium is required to bring in, and everything else that you need in order to do everything up until the yellow science is already on your home planet. You can start researching that stuff, and that can kind of tick away while you're potentially upgrading your base on a different planet. So you need the titanium crystals that we have over here, and this box is actually equipped with a couple of splitters, so you can either drop in the raw titanium and it will make the titanium into the titanium ingots, or you can do the smelting on a different planet and drop those in directly. Either way, you don't have to think about it. Just drop whatever titanium you have in here and it will take care of itself. Now, I am planning to actually build my main base on one of the planets in the system that has most of the resources available, with the exception maybe of oil. But other than that, the planet should ideally have everything on it and have a lot more building space than your ocean-filled starting planet has. Now, that means you will have to kind of do everything all over again, but as you can see, the way I do that over here is by using my blueprints to get all the basics up and running really quickly, really organized, and everything comes along with a pre-programmed logistics distributor. So the little robots, or the fidget spinners, as I think Nilaus coined that term, are there, right there to make sure you can distribute everything to your mole and everything else you build on this planet. Now, I can't emphasize enough how much time it saves you to use these blueprints, and how just convenient it is to use those blueprints to get everything going. On the upside, because the science is ticking away on your home planet, you can do all the required research you need in order to unlock ILSs while you actually build up your second base on the second planet, if that is what you decide to do as well. If you don't decide to do this, then of course you can simply expand the production on your home planet. Once you have those basic resources up and running, and it doesn't take that much time, all you need is a mole, and you pretty much are set for the entire mid-game. Now, as you can see, the builds include my default mole that you've seen probably several times before already. I recommend getting the solar panels up and running, and of course you need those fidget spinners to actually do their job. So make sure you do a little bit of this. Now, you will initially need to drop some of these resources in here by hand, but that's a very easy thing to do when you have everything right there. And once you get your first fidget spinners up and running, everything will take care of itself. The next few builds deal with getting your resources up and running for your ILS production, so you can automate the logistics between your planets and you don't have to ferry things back and forth. You're going to need titanium alloy for that, and particle containers, along with a couple of other things like steel. And of course that means you do have to ferry things like acid back and forth a few times. Well, maybe not a few times, maybe just once or twice. And of course some graphene as well, but other than that you should be good to go. This should have been producing on your home planet for a very long time, so you will have plenty of this stuff. And once you have your first ILS and PLSs up, you can completely automate this. You'll never have to bother about that again. As you can see, I did leave a little bit of room in this build, so you can easily put in the proliferators if you want. If you don't want to bother that with that in these smaller builds, then by all means don't. It is included in all the larger builds where you definitely want to do that, but here it's completely optional, so I left them out to begin with. And then, of course, the next few blueprints are meant to actually start producing your vessels and your ILSs. Initially, you might want to manually throw in a couple of things like the first alloys that you get, so you get a little bit of everything, rather than the bots deciding that you're only going to build vessels, for example, as tends to happen sometimes. But anyway, once you get your first few ILSs up, and you can see I have the first few already in production over here, you can start automating the transportation between planets, and everything should be a lot more convenient and take care of itself, like I've said a few times now. I really like my blueprints. They're pretty efficient, I think. As you can see, I'm about 4 hours into the game at this point, and we have everything automated in terms of yellow, science, and everything that comes before that. We have the ILS is automated, and at this point, you're basically gearing up for purple and green science and really starting to scale up, doing all your upgrades and things like that. I'm not going to show you that, mostly because it's pretty much identical to my recent playthrough, lacking any robots to oppose me. But I guess you get the gist. The blueprints themselves are fairly straightforward. Just keep building them in order. Make sure you fill any gaps that you might find that you have. Yeah, I think it kind of speaks for itself. But if you have any questions about that while you're playing, just reach out to me. I'll be online a lot, hopefully, in the coming few days. So make sure that you connect with me if you have any questions. So, guys, I hope you're just as excited about the new combat update as I am. Hope to see you in the game. Well, I can't actually see you in the game, so that's not going to work. But make sure you share with me how you're enjoying the robots, what you're encountering. If you have any problems with the robots or are looking for anything specific, please let me know. I have no idea what this is going to look like, but of course, I'm here to help. So make sure that you let me know what you would like to see from me. I hope you enjoyed this one. Don't forget to like and subscribe to do all the things. It does really help me out. And I definitely hope to catch you in the next one.